in putting together an exercise prescription, what are the results I'm going for? Like in putting together a diet, what are the results I'm going for? Because people ask me, should I do this or that? I go, I don't know. What are your results you're looking for? What is your current state of health? What's your lifestyle like? What are your goals? And then let's just design it so that it will get you where you want to be.
This is the Pursuit of Wellness podcast, and I'm your host, Mari Llewellyn. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the show. We have a very special guest today, someone I admire so much, JJ Virgin. She is a triple board certified nutrition expert, fitness Hall of Famer, and 4-time New York Times bestselling author. We are going to cover some amazing topics today. She's on a mission to change the narrative from aging gracefully to aging powerfully. She was such a wealth of knowledge. I also just love strong, powerful women in the health space. We're talking about the importance of aging powerfully and how to start in your 20s, VO2 Max and Dexa scans, what they are good for, focusing on getting strong and healthy, focusing on protein first, women and weightlifting, how to heal your metabolism, using Ozempic the right way, the importance of movement and covering the basics, the tea on creatine, and what wellness really means to her. You guys are going to absolutely love this episode. So many good topics you guys are always asking me about. So without further ado, let's hop right into this episode with JJ Virgin. JJ, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
I'm so excited. You look amazing.
Thank you. I'm glowing because I burst trained over here.
But your muscles are so impressive. And I feel like being muscular as a woman is something I've always admired so much. When I first got into fitness, it was like my goal was to have muscle because I feel like it's such an obvious way of showing hard work and discipline because it is so difficult as women for us to put on muscle. So I know you are a triple board certified nutrition expert, fitness Hall of Famer, and 4-time New York Times bestselling author. Incredible. I'd love to start from the beginning and just hear about how you became interested in this field.
I never wasn't. Like I've always
born interested.
I was started out in dance classes, right? And so I was very interested in what I was able to do with my body, but I always loved strength stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So in junior high and high school, this is going to sound so ridiculous now that you know how tall I am, I got obsessed with gymnastics.
I was also in gymnastics and I'm 5'10".
And my son is a tricker. He does parkour tricking. He's 6'2". I'm like, honey, not our sport.
No.
Not our sport. He did like a similar thing to what I did to my knee. I'm like, because it's not our sport. Well, I did point ballet and I did gymnastics. And then I lifted weights with the high school football team because there were no, like back then it was jazzercise and figure salons.
Wow.
Like seriously.
So no weights for women were even an option.
The little, the ones we think of as paperweights, those were an option because I love the fact that you love muscle and see it as this great sign of, this sexy strength and proof that you're like doing the work.
Yeah. But
that was not the case back then at all. Like not the case. And I just have that type of body, like naturally lean. If you were going to say, what do you want to do? I'd rather throw weights around any day of the week than do any kind of endurance, anything ever. So,
I feel the same way. I think it's so much more empowering.
Oh, and it's just more fun.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, you're going to tell me that going and running for 4 hours is fun? I see nothing fun, no fun. But it's so great when you're lifting weights because you can actually see yourself getting stronger. It's been challenging over the years because, my body type was always like lean and muscular. And I finally went, that's who I am. This is it. Like, this is the way it's going to go. I actually dated a guy once who was like, I like curvy women. I'm like, why on earth would you be,
Like, I don't know if this is the right fit.
Yeah. There's no way I can transform to that, nor am I going to, nor do I want to. So, I mean, God bless the curvy women and they're not me.
I know you have a focus on aging optimally and focusing on muscle as we age. A majority of my listeners are probably 25 to 30, kind of my age range. Why is it important that we start thinking about that now at this age?
Well, let's reframe it to aging powerfully.
Aging powerfully.
And this is the right age to start. I feel very fortunate. I was lifting weights at 16 with the high school football team with the bros. And I grew up, I went to Richmond, California. I went to a very rough neighborhood high school and lifted weights with the football team. If in the perfect world, we would be doing DEXA scans on girls in their teens and really seeing where they were in terms of bone density and muscle. And we would start, just like in the perfect world, if you had it to do over again, you would start investing from the time you were born. Your parents would teach you how to do it, and you would just invest all the way along. And you'd have this, you'd be a gazillionaire. It's the same with muscle. The earlier you start, the better. But the cool thing is, you would never tell a 60-year-old, well, you didn't start investing, guess you're screwed for retirement. You would say, start now. And that's what I'd say here, start now. But gosh, at this time period, I can't think of a better time to really get this dialed in and started than right now, because the dividends you're going to get later on in life are crazy amazing. There's all these horrible stats about aging, and I can tell you they don't need to be at all if you've got a solid foundation and you just don't stop.
And so it's never too late to start weightlifting, in your opinion?
No, if you're 26, you're fine.
But
even if you're 80.
Do you have advice? I would love if my parents were to weightlift, but I don't even know where to begin convincing them because they just didn't grow up in that culture. Do you have any tips on how we can encourage our parents to weightlift?
Yes. So they did grow up in the time of calisthenics and Jack LaLanne. And in the reality, when you look at what a lot of what he was doing, it was body weight calisthenics. It still was resistance training with some power training, right? Jumping jacks and things like that. So they grew up with that. Where I like to do this, I have a very specific progression, because my favorite audience is the audience that's new to resistance training. I love that audience. It's easy to indoctrinate the indoctrinated. But someone who's never done it, first of all, the results they're going to get are so much more. You take someone who's always resistance trained, it's like cleaning a clean window. Oh, I got rid of the speck. You take someone who has never resistance trained, it's like you've got a dirty window and all of a sudden you can see the light. It's crazy what they feel.
Newbie gains.
Yes. So newbie gains. But the cool thing is, and I always like to say, you don't train to get better at training, you train to get better at life. The great thing is you'll see it in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Everything. So what I like to do is first just have someone track. Well, first of all, I like them to do a DEXA. I think that's the most important thing. When you look at what we should be really monitoring as people age, they should go get a DEXA, which now the DEXA can do a predicted VO2 max. So they don't have to do the horrific stuff we had to do in grad school with the terrible mask and the nose plug.
Can you explain what a VO2 max is?
Yes. So it turns out, and I learned this from Dr. Andy Galpin, that a VO2 max is the single best predictor of lifespan.
Wow.
And not just lifespan, really health span too. And so it is how much oxygen you can take up when you're maximally pushing it. So in the way they do it in a laboratory setting, which is awful, is you're on a treadmill or a bike. They put a plug on your nose. They put a really tight fitting mask because none of the oxygen can get out. And they just basically run you. And, you just, because you're trying to get as much oxygen as possible to have a highest VO2 max. It's not pretty at all, right? Because lactate's basically going to kind of be your stopping point. So you can do this when you get a DEXA scan that's going to look at your body fat, but more importantly, where your fat's located. It's going to look at your muscle mass and how even that is. And then it can do a predicted VO2 max. I just found this out from the DEXA Fit group that they figured out the software on this. I'm like, could you imagine if this just became part of your physical, that you did this?
I've never done a DEXA scan, and I'm kind of shocked.
You haven't?
No.
You've not done a DEXA scan?
No, I don't even know where to go.
I bet you there's a DEXA Fit in Austin.
I'm 100% sure of that.
Up.
Yeah, please. Because I have no idea. I know.
Oh, you have to do a whole thing on it.
Okay.
This, again, so if you started with this, and then I'll tell you a funny story about my husband.
Okay.
So they go do that, then they'll see. And it's easy to the challenge with body composition and strength and power is that it changes so slowly. It's like all of a sudden you look outside and your grass is dead, but you didn't realize it was dying all the way along. It's the same with this stuff. You won't notice until all of a sudden you can't move fast enough and you break your hip.
Such a good point. I think of my personal journey. I mean, I lost 90 pounds in 2017 and I didn't really notice until it got really bad. And I think hitting rock bottom is sometimes a blessing because it makes you jump into action.
Right.
And then I haven't looked back ever since, because the way you feel when you learn how to lift weights and eat well and get strong, it's like you wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about that because I think the important thing there is you're not focusing on losing weight. You're focusing on getting strong, getting
Mhm.
healthy, and falling in love with those activities. And if you live like a healthy, lean person, guess what will happen?
Mhm.
And then you stay there, which is the hardest part of all. So if your parents were to do that, DEXA, that's not you telling them,
It's
which will not
facts.
work. It's the facts, Jack. So they do that. And then ideally that predicted VO2 max. Then what I like to do is start to track their activity. Because here's the thing, if they start doing 30 minutes of exercise a day and sit on their butts the rest of the time, that's not going to work. And if they actually get the movement first, it will help more. So I first track activity and then I get them up to 8 to 12,000 steps a day. That's kind of the sweet spot. More is better, but that's you got to hit that. Then I add some intensity a couple days a week into that. So maybe put a rucking vest on. I think they're the
My husband
greatest.
loves those.
They're so great.
Do you do it? You ruck?
I do. But I don't
Uphill?
ruck. No. Well, I live in Florida.
It's a little flat. Yep.
Unless I can find a bridge, I'm out of luck. No, what I use it for is if you look at the research on the 12,000 step studies, they did a group where they had one group of 12,000 just walk. They started these people out. You walk 12,000. These were sedentary people. You walk 12,000 steps a day, but 3 times a week, add some intensity for 30 minutes. They both improved LDL-C, but the group that did the intensity also improved body composition, waist circumference, HDL.
Wow. I am leaving on a 2-week trip on Saturday, and something I always take with me in my carry-on bag is my Bite toothpaste. When thinking about swapping out our everyday products for healthier options, we don't often think about our toothpaste, and the truth is most commercial toothpastes are filled with harsh chemicals, artificial flavors, and preservatives, not things we want to be putting in our mouths, let alone eating. And that is why Bite makes dry toothpaste tablets made with clean ingredients that are sulfate-free, palm oil-free, and glycerin-free. They're also just so convenient. You pop a bit in your mouth, chew it up, and start brushing. It will turn into the paste you're used to without the messy paste or plastic tubes. It's better for the environment. It comes in a refillable glass jar that is so cute on the countertop. It's better for our bodies and the earth. Bite is offering our listeners 20% off your first order. Go to trybite.com/POW or use code POW at checkout to claim this deal. That's TRYBITE.com/POW. One big switch I made on my skin journey was switching out my pillowcase to a Blissy pillowcase. It has so many benefits with skin, hair, aging, and so much more. Set yourself up with better sleep with Blissy's award-winning 100% mulberry silk pillowcases. It is what's best for your skin and hair. It reduces frizz, tangles, and prevents breakage. It keeps the moisture in your hair and keeps your skincare products and natural moisture on your skin. Cotton pillowcases literally absorb it off your face. So say goodbye to wrinkles, dry, flaky, and red skin in the morning and wake up with healthier, shinier hair. There are a lot of dupes out there that claim satin can be a good alternative for silk, but that is not the case. Satin is made from synthetic fibers like polyester, while silk is a luxurious, all-natural fiber. It's so much more breathable, moisture-wicking, and gentle. Blissy pillowcases are made of 100% mulberry silk, which is naturally hypoallergenic and washable. So this is really like the best option possible, and it's naturally cooling. I am definitely someone who likes to sleep cold, and we know from sleep experts that is the best way to sleep. So I absolutely love that feature. Everybody loves them. They have a ton of different prints and colors, and they make great gifts because there's an option for literally anyone. Men love them too. They have over 1 million raving fans, and you could be next. Try now risk-free for 60 nights at blissy.com/powpod and get an additional 30% off. That's blissy.com/powpod and use code POWPOD, POWPOD, to get an additional 30% off. Your skin and hair will thank you.
Same amount of steps.
Yeah.
Little less time over there, right? Because you added some intensity. So the way I see a rucking vest, it's a great way to add intensity. It's a great way to put, to strengthen your bones.
Mm.
And if someone's losing weight and they're concerned about a little metabolic downshift, which some of that we can offset with resistance training and adding more muscle. But the other way we could is like wear your rucking vest around.
Make
Like at
things
home, I'll just
harder.
wear my rucking vest around and I'll do some treadmill walking with my rucking vest. That's how I use it. It's just more of my sustained activity. Although sometimes at night we'll go out and crank it
Yeah.
with the rucking vest. So that's the next step. Then I add in resistance training, but really focusing on compound moves that mimic what we want to be better at in life.
Mm.
Like if I had to pick one, it would obviously be a squat.
Yep.
And you hear from people, they're like, oh, I can't do that because I have bad knees, bad back, bad. I often think the reason why you say you can't is the reason why you must.
Yes.
Right. And so like I blew out my knee at 17 because 6 foot tall gals shouldn't do point ballet. Nor should they.
You know what's
do
funny? I also
gymnastics.
did point ballet.
It's like, are you the type of person when they say you can't do that, you're like, really?
Yeah, let's try it. Let's
Game
go.
on.
I horseback ride now. I feel like being shorter is easier for horseback riding. I mean, we're just defying the odds. It's fine.
When I blew out my knee and then I had an ACL repair, and I actually trained people down at Goldstream in Venice, hopping on one leg.
Wow.
And they said, listen, you can do anything, but don't mogul ski. And I'm like, I've never mogul skied. But now all of a sudden, what do I want to do? I had to go mogul ski because
that has to be the hardest thing on the knees ever. I mean, it's all knees.
There's nothing fun about it, but I went and did it and I blew my knee out again. So he was right. So what types of exercises would this be? And again, when you're first getting someone moving, a lot of it is how the nerves, you're training your nervous system. Like so often when you first start the first month, you're not going to see any real muscle hypertrophy because you're getting more of neurological learning. So
can you explain what that means, hypertrophy?
So hypertrophy is your muscles getting bigger, which we know starting at around age 30, your muscle size starts to go down. It's anywhere from 3 to 8% a decade. Doesn't have to. I'll come back to the my Tim Hubby story on the Dexa. But the scary part actually isn't that the muscle size is going down. It's the muscle quality problem. A lot of it is our muscles getting infiltrated with fat, think ribeye versus filet, right? And we're losing strength, 2 to 4% of strength versus 1% muscle, but we're losing even more power. Strength is how much could you pick up one time? Power is how fast could you do it? And when you think about what translates to everyday life and why you see people breaking a hip and never recovering is they can't catch themselves, right?
Yep.
They can't dart out of the way fast.
Isn't that one of the leading reasons that older people end up in the hospital and die young?
I don't know how many of them, how many people break a hip. I can't remember that stat. I do know this stat. If you are one of those people, and right now, like sarcopenia, it's something like 4 to 11% of 50 to 60-year-olds have low muscle relative to their weight, sarcopenia. And then it, of course, just gets worse, but it doesn't have to, again, doesn't have to. But if you are one of those people who breaks your hip at 65, it's a third of those people die within a year, like never get out of the hospital, die within a year. And half of the people, they're never where they were.
Yeah.
You know, they lose muscle, they can never get back. That's why it's so important not to get injured as you age. So you would start with things like doing an air squat. I mean, I'm doing this with someone right now who is morbidly obese, and we've gotten him to see back to the person he used to be, which was a, professional tennis player, right? Wow. And so the first thing that we did was squats, but they weren't even squats over a chair because he couldn't go down that far easily. Like he has to pull himself out of a chair. There was a squat over just the side of the chair, an air squat. Next, we'll go down to the chair, right? And then we might add a little handheld weight.
Yeah.
But the form is always the limiter. And then when you think about it, like how many things in life involve you getting up off of something, a toilet, a chair, a car? So I would start with a squat with no body weight. Then you can add a little dumbbell that you hold. Then you can also, once you get that foundation, you can do a squat with a jump to add some power in.
Yep.
One of the ways we can test a vertical jump is just take a pencil and mark it, and then jump as high as you can and mark it again. And you can get the norms for that. So that would be one. One's obviously a deadlift. And the caveat is, I hear from people, well, I can't do these things because, and again, if you have bad knees, when I blew my knee out at 17 and then did the dumb thing again, they're like, you need a knee replacement. I go, all right, I'll come back. And I came back 30 years later. And literally they were like, we don't know how you're walking. You are bone on bone. Like, how are you doing this? But I'd strengthened everything else so much that I was able to do it. And then I trained for the knee surgery. So literally I never used a walker. I never used anything. 3 weeks later, I was on stage. So, it's like, you have to think of these things differently.
Right.
So if they started with a squat, they started with a deadlift. What's the deadlift? It might be just them doing the movement. And then maybe they're picking up water bottles.
Yeah.
Right. Them doing push-ups. Like, in the perfect world, you would go in for a physical, you would get a DEXA with a VO2 max, you'd have to do push-ups, and you would have to do like a jump test. Okay. It would be amazing. And then you'd have to do a balance test. Right.
In terms of nutrition, I know you are a big advocate for protein first. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yes. So when you look at what happens as we age, we get this thing called anabolic resistance, where we're having trouble making muscle from the protein resistance training. Those are our two stimuluses really for making muscle as we age. And so the challenge that happens, I see, as we age is we're starting to eat less. Like, we do less. And I always say the less you do, the less you can do. Then we're eating less. Our nutrients go down. And for so many women, and I think this is women in particular, like, women in particular have been trying to get smaller their whole life. Yeah. Eat less, get smaller. I mean, I used to do nutrition consulting for South Beach models. So, and they were so afraid of putting on muscle because they had to just be skinny and toned. And I'm like, what is toned?
Toned is the funniest word to me.
They would literally, like, it was like the cocaine diet. They would literally eat very little.
Wow.
But this is, I feel like, a pretty endemic situation, is that we've always thought that we need to just eat less. And what I find with people is I start to talk about how much protein you need as you age, which I put it at somewhere in the 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of target body weight. What I find is that someone will eat and I'll go, oh, I'm too full. And I go, well, you had a salad. And I just watched this the other day. I went out to dinner with some people. I go, this happens every single time. I'm like, is this the universe like just saying, keep going? My girlfriend sits down. She has a Caesar salad, croutons, cheese, dressing. Now, it's better than maybe a salad with, glazed nuts and dried fruit and a raspberry vinaigrette. But either which way, to me, I look at that as a sundae. You have 5 calories of lettuce. You have a whole bunch of garbage, right? Has that, then has 3 scallops. I'm like, why don't we just not eat the salad and have 6 scallops, right? But then I'm full. I can't eat any more.
Oh, the 3 scallops with the entree.
That was it.
Oh, for me, that would be an appetizer.
It was an appetizer. That's the point. She had the appetizer for the entree. I'm like, okay. If you sit down, so if you eat your protein first, a couple things happen. There's some great study that showed that people who eat protein first actually make better food choices overall. Yeah. Okay, there's the first part. I think it's that protein leverage hypothesis. I don't know if you've looked at that. I think it's so interesting. You make sure you get your protein in. So if you get full, you're fine. And protein, of course, we know is more satiating. It's got a better thermic effect. It also is more satisfying. So, and it's got great blood sugar control. I know there's all this stuff all over about what you need to eat for blood sugar control. And I'm like, well, lift weights, eat protein, your blood sugar will go up. That's okay. Just don't go up 100.
Can you explain how muscles help with glucose control?
A variety of different ways. First of all, one of the things that happens as we age, and I really think of aging as we have to start thinking about 30 plus.
That's giving me anxiety because I turned 30 in 20 days at this point.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday. It's the best. First of all, like, what you're going to discover as you go through life is that, and it's all mindset, by the way, every decade just gets better. Now, that's all mindset.
Do I need to lift more? you know?
What's your DEXA going to say? Let's look at your DEXA. Let's do this on information.
Yeah.
In my mind, I would want to be getting as much of a reservoir for muscle as I can. But, it's not just having the muscle mass, it's having that quality muscle. And what's interesting is you can increase your strength without really increasing muscle size as much. Like there are different types of training for strength, power, and size.
Yep.
So, when I was down at Goldsham in Venice, those guys were all size. But there are people who could outlift them.
Yes, for sure.
Smaller.
I think that's a big misconception in the fitness space.
Huge.
It's all for show in a way.
Yeah, it is all for show.
Yeah.
It's all for show. So, I look at it and go, well, we do want, you want to have that muscle fiber. Yes. But if you think about it, especially for women, we have slow twitch and fast twitch fibers, as you know, but we tend to have predominantly more slow twitch, and we are better at burning fat in our muscles than men are. So what we want to focus on is that fast twitch, which is more prone to hypertrophy. That's the stuff that's more important for strength and for power. Now, there's two different ways this is good. Number one, you're more insulin sensitive. That's the fast way you can increase insulin sensitivity is through muscle. And then you also have a storage depot for carbs because you store energy in the form of carbohydrates called glycogen in your muscles so that when you go do things again, you can use it. So that's great. And you can now just get some of that blood sugar out of the bloodstream and into those muscles. So like if you were going to go eat a piece of pie, then go do some squats and push-ups. Right?
I love that. Or do you feel like a walk is also effective?
Oh, sure. A walk. In the perfect world, of which I want to really see, I'd love to peek behind the curtains of the influencers and go, is that really your routine? Like really? Because I have a sauna, red light, cold plunge. I wish I could do that.
I know.
Every day.
For me, that's a perfect day. A
perfect day, which
on
is
a
rare.
Perfect day. Exactly. Like I'm probably doing that level like 1 to 2 times a week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like you fit it in when you can.
Right. And you celebrate it. I finally just went, I'm going to look at, I think we have to look at all of these things. Like, I don't want to call them snacks because I was doing a talk recently and someone said, what about exercise snacks? And someone goes, we get to eat while we work out. And I'm like, no. So I'm thinking more like microdosing and microdosing your self-care, microdosing your exercise. And in fact, years ago, there was a study that looked at a group that was told to exercise 30 minutes a day versus a group that was told to exercise 3 times a day, 10 minutes each time. And at the time, I remember reading the results, and they thought that the reason the 3 times 10 got better results was because you either did 30 minutes or nothing. I think now we would look at that and go, there's a variety of things at play. One of them being you're going to be more intense if you're only 10 minutes, but also you're breaking up those bouts and stimulating your metabolism and getting blood flow going. And there's a lot to it. So exercise, don't think you have to work out an hour straight. In fact, I think you're better off breaking it up if you can.
I love that you're saying that because I feel like there's a misconception that you need to be in the gym for 2 hours to see any results. My husband
in the gym 2 hours. People always say that to me too. They're like, how long do you spend in the gym? I'm like, not that much.
As if the number's like the magic number. Yeah. How long are you in the gym?
I haven't read the article yet, but Peter Attia sent out a blog that said it's the results, not the time.
Yes. Yes.
And that's why you have to look at all of these things and go, in putting together an exercise prescription, what are the results I'm going for? Like in putting together a diet, what are the results I'm going for? Because people ask me, should I do this or that? I go, I don't know. What are your results you're looking for? What is your current state of health? What's your lifestyle like? What are your goals? And then let's just design it so that it will get you where you want to be. And some of these things may be short-term interventions, and some of them may be things that you'll do for a while. Yeah. And then it may switch. If you're pregnant, it will switch. If you're, postpartum, it will switch because all of a sudden, like I had a great hack of wearing a baby on each side and hiking up hills.
I mean, that's rucking.
Baby hit training.
That's true rucking.
Yeah, and squatting and all sorts of stuff. I'm like, I'll do something with these kids.
We'll make these kids useful somehow.
Yes. Figure this out.
You guys know I cook a lot. I'm going through my sourdough era. I'm trying new recipes, and I absolutely love using my Caraway cookware. They have greatly enhanced my summer meals, and I feel safe cooking with this cookware, and it really fits with my kitchen aesthetic. I love the sage green color, but I also absolutely love their stainless steel pans. Caraway products are made without any toxic materials, so no PFAs, PTFEs, PFOAs, or any other hard to pronounce chemicals. Plus, they're so easy to clean and organize. I absolutely love the way they send their products. Over 65,000 people have rated 5 stars, and now it's time to try for yourself. And just as a reminder, their internet famous cookware comes with a saute pan, fry pan, Dutch oven, and saucepan, plus lids for all of them, a canvas lid holder, and a magnetic pan rack for storage. It is the ultimate kitchen setup and will save you $150 versus buying the items individually. Plus, if you visit carawayhome.com/pursuit, you can take an additional 10% off your purchase. This deal is exclusive for our listeners, so visit carawayhome.com/pursuit or use code pursuit at checkout. And don't forget to mention that you heard about Caraway from us in their post-purchase survey. Caraway, non-toxic cookware made modern. Throughout my whole skin journey, acne has been such a reoccurring issue for me, and I've had such a hard time finding skincare I really trust. And that's where I found ClearStem. It's the first skincare line that combines all 3 categories: anti-acne, anti-aging, clean, meaning free of hormone disruptors, and pore clogging fillers. I also love the founders, Danielle and Kaylee. They have experienced acne themselves, so they know exactly what to put in their products and the right way to go about it. I also love that they offer an acne lab test, which is helping thousands of people get to the root cause of their acne through comprehensive lab testing and lifestyle-based recommendations. I always say the first step to getting to the root cause of your acne is to do lab testing. It truly is the only way to figure out what is really going on in your body. So I highly recommend you guys try ClearStem. I love the products. I use the gentle cleanser every day. I love the body lotion. I love the hair care. I love the lip balm. Visit clearstemskincare.com and use code POW at checkout for 20% off your first purchase. Again, that's code POW for 20% off your first purchase on clearstemskincare.com.
The nutrition I do now, because I've been through so many phases of nutrition. I was in the 80s during the don't eat fat phase.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that took a while to recover from. But the nutrition, the supplements, the exercise I do now is not the same as what I was doing in my 20s or my 30s. You shift.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So I would love for you to speak to the women listening who are afraid to get bulky. This is sort of like a common concern, which I find, I've spoken about it a lot on here. I find it quite funny because when I personally look at myself pre and post weightlifting, to me, I feel like I look more feminine now. And the bulky concept is just, I don't know. I lost 90 pounds weightlifting. So when people ask me if they're going to get bulky, I just find it funny. But what's your response?
I just interviewed Dr. Stacy Sims last night, and we were dying laughing about this because I will literally say in 40 years of working with people, and she concurred with everyone she's worked with, we have never seen someone get bigger lifting weights, a female. I remember early on, Miriam Nelson, this PhD from Tufts, did some research on women, and she found that when women resistance trained, they got smaller. What I like to call it is metabolic spanks. If you want to get bigger, do not work out. Maybe just do some walking, but don't work out. Increase your calories, you'll get bigger. If you want to get smaller, go lift weights. It's going to hold everything in tighter. It's going to improve your insulin sensitivity. It's going to give sugar a place to land. It's going to be easier for you to burn fat. And you're going to have a better metabolic rate and better metabolic afterburn. And all of a sudden, and I'll tell you the story of Vicky, you'll look at your body and you'll go, wow, I'm the same weight and size is smaller. So I had this gal who came to me, and thankfully I had like early on, I had one of the first segmental bioimpedance machines. This was 20 years ago, I think, 15. And so she comes to me, she goes, I need to lose 10 pounds. She was 19 BMI. She did not leave. If she lost 10 pounds, I was right. She didn't need to lose 10 pounds. And I go, okay. So, and she was doing Jenny Craig diet, and she wanted to lose 10 pounds. So I in fact even looked at the Jenny Craig diet to see if I could use any of it. And I was like horrified I was like, there's nothing in here that I could actually utilize.
What was it?
It was like damaged fats, and it's just ultra processed, carby, fatty, low. It was low fat, high carb, very low protein. The oils they did use were bad, terrible. Anyway, we worked together for a year. Over the course of the year, she lost 10 pounds of fat. She put on 10 pounds of muscle.
Wow.
Now, for women, putting on a pound or two of muscle a month is great. Like a woman's not going to go in. That's when they say, I'm going to get bulky. I'm like, if we kill it, maybe we'll get 2 pounds of muscle on a month, 2 pounds of muscle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And likely you'll be like Vicky, who lost 10 pounds of fat alongside it. She lost 2 clothing sizes. She lost like 2 inches off her waist. She went from 25% body fat down to 18% body fat, looked amazing, and was upset
that the scale didn't move.
I know. I'm like, I don't know what to say.
But this is such a fantastic story for you to share, because women are hyperfixated on the scale. I personally don't even use it. I go based on how my clothes fit, how I feel, how I look in the mirror, because I feel like that's so much more telling than the scale.
Well, I have a whole philosophy around the scale, which probably isn't popular.
Go ahead.
I am no longer afraid of people saying mean things about me, though. So social media does that for you. They're like, I'm like, what are they going to say?
Tough skin.
Well, but I also feel like I have a responsibility to share things that may work for someone. So I think you go get a DEXA. The challenge with the scale is we're looking at weight. It's not the weight, it's what the weight's made up of. But we need to see that shift to know if what we're doing is working. So what I like to do is get a DEXA, see what that says. And if you are really working on changing, do your DEXA every 6 months. If you're fairly stable, you could probably do it once a year. Then come home and get a bioimpedance scale. That is a scale that's going to do your body composition. It's all predicted. It is the DEXA's the most accurate, easy one to do, because we can either kill you and do a cadaver dissection or do an MRI. So the DEXA is going to be the most accurate that's out there, but this, you're going to correlate it to see the change, the relative change. So this is going to do a bioimpedance wave up your body and check the resistance to it. The more resistance, the more body fat. So because fat creates resistance, it's actually doing this by calibrating your total body water. The more total body water, the higher your muscle mass, right? Now, in every human, every day, this goes up and down. It's kind of like the stock market, right? You would never decide what to do with the stock. One day you would look at the trend, right? You'd look at your investment account, you'd look at the trend. So what you do with this is you go get your DEXA, you come home in the morning, you pee, you get on your scale, you take that number of your body fat, your total body water. It's going to give you all sorts of numbers. It's going to report into your phone on an app. You don't even have to look at it. But once a week, what you do is you look at the trend.
Okay.
And then, because what you're doing is you're using that data, just like the data you'd use going, oh, I was able to do 20 push-ups when I can only do 10. You're looking at all of this biometric data. Now, you would never get up in the morning, look at your Oura ring, look at your sleep score and say, I'm a horrible person. I suck. I can't, we'd never do that, right? But we do this stuff with the scale and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to use it for the information that it has in there. And then you can go, wow, I've been doing this for a month and I'm not really seeing a change in muscle mass. So I either have to evaluate, am I doing the right type of stimulus? Do I have enough protein on board? Maybe I need to add some creatine. Like what needs to shift to get to that goal? That's why I use it.
Thank you for explaining that.
And one more piece.
Please.
And this really goes along with how my clothes fit. Use a tape measure, and there's a Bluetooth tape measure.
Oh.
Renfo, $30. It's so cool.
That is
You do
cool.
a waist and a hip. You do your waist to height and your waist to hip, and that goes in every week. And so now you can just monitor these things and see what's going on. And it's cool because if you're, if you track your food, you can now see if you need to adjust something, you can see what's working, but it's never done based on a day.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, if I have a perfect day, right? Perfect day. Like I did all my therapies, I did my perfect workout, I ate perfect, did everything perfect. the weight's always up the next day. I was like, what the hell, right?
Because the exercise can inflame you and then you weigh more, 100%.
Absolutely. Oh, I remember I was starting to do some cycle racing. And so I was like doing all this horrible stuff. And I get on the scale next morning and I'm 5 pounds up. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
How is this possible?
Yeah.
I know it cracks me up too when I hear about, you know, people going on the keto diet and they're like, I lost 5 pounds and it's water, you know? I know there's a concept, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast. If you have more muscle, you essentially burn more calories just existing. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how to explain the science behind it. Can you explain that for us?
Yeah, because muscle protein turnover is costly.
Okay.
Doesn't take much for fat to hang out.
So for someone who's losing weight right now, because a lot of the girls who listen to my show have a lot of weight loss questions, the more muscle they put on, the easier it will be for them to lose weight.
Yeah, I love weight loss. I have worked in weight loss since my late teens. I've been fascinated, obsessed with weight loss. And I really, really, really wish we could reframe it to fat loss.
Yes.
Unless you're working with someone who is morbidly obese, and then they will lose some fat-free mass too. You basically have two components in your body. You have fat mass and you have fat-free mass. Now within fat mass, we have subcutaneous, that's, the stuff you'll see on your hips and thighs. And then you have that visceral adipose tissue. Why I love a DEXA is it's going to tell you what you have. You may not like the fat on your thighs, but that is not the problem that the fat around your organs are. And we want to see that. And your fat-free mass is basically skeletal. It's everything else, right? And so some of that fat-free mass supports fat. So if you have a lot of weight to lose, you're going to lose some fat-free mass too. But if you have 10 to 20 pounds of weight to lose, even 30, or you're a skinny fat, which is what my husband was when he took the DEXA, you may have no muscle. Like you may want to be putting on muscle while you're losing fat. And a lot of times that's where people are. If you want to get to a point where you don't have metabolic adaptation, like you heard with the Biggest Losers, where all of a sudden they go through this extreme weight loss and their the basal metabolic rate is 500 calories less a day than it should be based on their metabolism, muscle is key. Because when you do a real basal metabolic rate test, which you can do through a breath test, the DEXA is going to predict it, but a breath test will do even better. Like the DEXA predicted me, I think at 1500, 1600, and the breath was like 1750.
Okay.
It's just, so it's going to be based on your muscle mass. That dictates everything because that muscle is very metabolically active. It's turning over all the time. It's breaking down, building up, breaking down, building up. Ideally, you are building up more than you're breaking down. At the very least, you want to keep it static, but you definitely don't want to be breaking down more than you're building up.
Okay. Do you have a view on the Ozempic craze? Because
Yes.
I'm hearing people are losing muscle as well as fat.
So if you design a diet that does not involve resistance training and is not optimized for protein, you are going to lose muscle. A poorly designed diet will be anywhere from 25 to 40% muscle loss.
Wow.
It's not the Ozempic doing it.
So you're not against Ozempic, you're just against people like eating and exercising the wrong way while on it.
I'm against anyone going on a diet the wrong way.
Right.
Because of the devastation that it does to your metabolism. Mm-hmm. So I've worked in weight loss since my 20s, and I got very interested early on because of a client who came to me, and if she ate over 1,200 calories a day, she'd gain weight. She had lived on, like you went into her pantry and opened it up. You won't remember these things because you were probably in the womb, but she had things like Butter Bud, Snack Wells, like all these fat-free, all this garbage, ultra-processed diet food, right?
Wow.
And so, I was like, this is such a head scratcher because I didn't understand at the time that you don't lose weight to get healthy. You have to get metabolically healthy to lose weight. And that if you've gotten to yourself to this point where you're so insulin resistant that you've got to go and start to do the things that start to heal your metabolism so that your body can burn fat and hold on to or build muscle. And that's where she was.
How do you heal your metabolism?
Well, the greatest things are, when you really look at what heals your metabolism the most, because the person I'm working with right now, who literally has more fat than person to lose. And so what we started with, we're really looking at three things. How is your sleep?
Mm.
If one poor night of sleep and you're more insulin resistant. So sleep has got to be dialed in. How do we start working with your nutrition to help make sure that you've got good satiety, good blood sugar balance, and optimize nutrients? Because quite often we're low in things like vitamin D that's going to contribute to insulin resistance. And then the exercise that we can do to improve that insulin sensitivity. So really, a lot of what we're trying to do is start to improve that insulin sensitivity as quickly as possible. The reason I think these medications are fantastic, and here's the thing, I'm going to differentiate. There's a medication, Ozempic, Mounjaro, et cetera, and then there's the peptide that the medication is made from. The real question we should be asking is, why are these working so well? What's the problem it's solving? And is this the best way to solve the problem, or is there another way? What these do is, one of the things is shut the food noise down. And we know that when you're really insulin resistant, it is very hard for you to get, your cells are resistant and you're not getting the nutrients signaling that you need, and you're hungry all the time. In fact, if you look at GLP-1 deficiencies, it shows that people who have insulin resistance, obesity, or NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is 25% of the population, are GLP-1 deficient. So if you've got someone who's not going to get that satiety signaling going, who's more insulin resistant, and you could give them something to help start to support that insulin sensitivity and shut the food noise off, reduce the inflammation. Inflammation is its own independent risk factor for obesity. The more obese you get, the more inflamed you get. The more inflamed you get, the more obese you get. And then the more insulin resistant you get, which is the more inflamed you get, it starts to just be this horrible spiral that's like you're in a metabolic hole. And so you get a little bit of this, which I would love to see. And I know there are these doctors out there, because I'm friends with a bunch of them, who are using this in a very different way. They're using the peptide, not the drug form, which is higher dose, and they're using it lower dose to help the body go, oh, okay, here's a little bit of this. Now I'm going to push out a little insulin, and I'm going to get my blood sugar down, and I'm going to shut down the satiety signals, and I'm going to reduce some of the inflammation so the person feels comfortable moving again. I mean, they're showing that this is good for brain health, heart health, kidney health, osteoarthritis. So my son had a major traumatic brain injury, like almost died multiple times. And so he's got a longstanding brain injury. And as I was listening to a doctor teach about these peptides, and then I went and started to dig through the research and went, oh my gosh, like it's neuroregenerative.
Wow.
So we've put him on it, and I will cycle him on it forever.
Wow.
It is life-changing.
Wow.
Now, what would happen if you took someone, and by the way, there's also supplements that can do this and a special form of sugar that can do this. But if you took someone, all of a sudden you can give them a little bit of this, shut the food noise off, get them eating protein first. You're only going to give it to them if they commit to eating protein and tracking with a food scale and an app, because otherwise we know that even dietitians underestimate what they eat by 25%. So, it's like when you go to places where they serve you such big sizes, we have such food distortion. But they're going to eat protein, track their food. They're going to do resistance training, and then they're going to start doing the things that help your body, help restore that GLP-1 sensitivity again and production again, like protein and fiber, exercise, improving insulin sensitivity. You might get to a point where they don't need to be on it anymore, or they may have to cycle low dose for life. And I would argue, like with my son, who had to be on hypertension meds because the brain injury messed that up, right? And he had to be on a couple other things that we've been able to take him off of to low dose cycle this.
Wow.
What if you could get rid of polypharmacy just by using this? And what if you could help someone regain control enough, because they'd been so stuck for so long, that all of a sudden they see the light, and now they're able to move again? I mean, when you're 200 pounds overweight, walking to the mailbox is hard.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Sitting up and down off the chair side is hard.
Yeah.
And, if we could give someone a chance with the right counseling. Like I wouldn't if I was a benevolent dictator, you would have to do all of those things. You basically have to have a camera on, this is what I'm eating. This is the resistance training. And you would do it in little exercise bites. And I've now seen enough people that have used this and have lost no muscle. Wow. So I don't buy it.
Okay. I have a few questions because Ozempic is just such a big topic right now. I mean,
why is it? Why is there so much polarizing anger and nastiness around this?
I see the anger side, but I also see the people who are so interested. And I even see it, like I have a supplement company. People behind the scenes are creating supplements that are in line with Ozempic. And this is just creating such waves in the industry. And I have so many questions about it. You mentioned there are supplements that can kind of mimic it. Mm-hmm. Are you referring to berberine?
No, berberine does not mimic it. Berberine helps improve insulin sensitivity. Berberine is amazing. It's amazing for your gut. It's amazing for insulin sensitivity. That's not what it's for.
Okay.
So there's things that improve insulin sensitivity. That is one of the things that GLP-1 does, right? So that could be berberine. That could be things like lipoic acid, chromium, right? So magnesium, vanadium, zinc, fish oil, improving insulin receptor sensitivity. But there's actually two things that I know of that are pretty amazing. And so one of them is a rare sugar allulose. And allulose basically your body doesn't absorb any of the calories from it. What they found, there's a company called RX Sugar who's gone deep into researching this and has put together a medical advisory board of rock stars, Dr. Rick Johnson, Dr. Ben Bickman, Dr. Dom D'Agostino. And what they have found is that it causes a GLP-1 release. So much so that they have now got diabetics who have shown, type 1 insulin-dependent diabetics, taking allulose, eating a candy bar, not needing insulin. It's that level of crazy control that'll do. I'm not saying do that. That's by the way. But what I'm saying is here we have something that if you did a 10 to 15 gram dose before a meal, it can act like it can help raise GLP-1. Wow. Then there's another supplement from New Zealand called Calocurb. Calocurb.
With C?
With C. Okay. It was for 10 years they studied these different forms of hops varieties and figured out how to put together this formula they patented. And then this really smart woman bought this and created this company, and it'll raise GLP-1 for about 4 hours post. If you look at these GLP-1 agonists, they just keep it raised. And that's not how GLP-1 works. I mean, if you look at it, exercise raises it. That's why it's no one in the middle of exercise goes, God, I need to eat something right now, right? So exercise does it, protein does it, fiber does it. Allulose will do it transiently, which is how the body does it too. And Calocurb will do it as well.
Allulose, I feel like I've heard of. Mm-hmm. It's a sugar replacement, no?
I would love to think of it, where I think of monk fruit and stevia as sugar replacements, I think of allulose as a therapeutic sugar. And I don't really love sweet, but I have been working on how to put more of this in to my diet because it just makes sense to do.
Yeah.
Right. So they do these little, I have one of these. They have these dark chocolate bars called their Swelthy snacks. And they have 10 grams of allulose. So if you eat one of those, it helps with that GLP-1.
That's fascinating. I've never heard that before.
Super cool.
Okay, I'm going to look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, my other question.
Oh, one more thing about GLP-1.
Yeah.
It can, and I've got this paper too, I can share this with you. It can actually start to lower myostatin.
What's that?
So what it can do is help you with muscle protein synthesis. So it can help block muscle breakdown. So there's so much more to it. What you're seeing is, I think, it being used incorrectly.
I think people are taking way too much. I mean, I don't know much about it, but I know when I lived in LA, people who were already somewhat underweight were going on it, and now they're just...
Now, I think there's a place for anyone to be on it for the other longevity effects, the cardiovascular effects, the osteoarthritis effects, the autoimmune effects. There's a whole bunch of stuff in it that it does beyond just the appetite piece.
Do you think there's anything negative that could come out of it down the line that we don't know about yet?
Who knows? It's been around for what, 10, 15 years? So it's been around for a while. I think that with so many things, it's the dose.
Yeah.
If your body's already naturally producing it, and maybe it's not producing it like it should because of those factors, and you're just giving it the little bit that it needs, you're basically mimicking normal physiology.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay.
I'd
Interesting.
be much more concerned. I mean, you look at what are the long-term risks of carrying 50 plus pounds around,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's not the weight that you're carrying, it's the inflammation and what it's doing to your body, what it's doing to your brain, what it's doing to your heart. What's the ramifications of that? And the big thing I hear is, oh, you have to be on it for life. I'm like, well, you would have been on your blood pressure, statin, all these other things.
Yeah.
So if it was that you had to be on a low dose cycling peptide, or hopefully you got to a point where you could use these other things, or hopefully you wouldn't need any of it because you've totally healed your metabolism. But even if you had to be on a low dose for life versus all those other medications, I don't know, I'd pick that.
Right. Okay. Thank you for answering that. I appreciate it. On the topic of healing your metabolism, back to that, something that I ran into on my weight loss journey that kind of got me stuck for a little bit is I felt like I was using the method of obviously weight training, and then I was slowly but surely like decreasing the amount of food I was eating. I reached a point, and now I know more, and I probably wouldn't get into the situation again, but I think a lot of the girls listening have experienced this, where I was eating probably not enough, like probably close to that 1200 range, because I was using MyFitnessPal every day so I could see, and it definitely wasn't enough. I didn't have enough energy for my workouts, but I was so terrified to increase my food and gain weight. So I essentially kind of went on a reverse diet. How would you handle that type of situation?
First of all, this is why I love to track body composition, because then you have the information and it keeps you from being insane.
Keeps you from being terrified.
Yeah, because we get insane. And if you really think instead, I'm healing my metabolism, what are the ways I'm going to look at this? It's my, how much lean muscle mass do I have? What's my body fat percentage? How much visceral adipose tissue? What's my insulin sensitivity look like? Right? So if I look at the things that are important and they are improving, if my weight's the same, but I'm losing fat and putting on muscle, great. If my waist is going down, great. And I really love, and I learned this one from Dr. Bill Campbell, I love this idea of kind of cycling caloric restriction. So where I like to start with someone is the very first thing I think you should do is just do an audit for a week. Now, your weight has to stay stable during that week. And what I know is if you do an audit for your week, you'll lose weight because all of a sudden you're actually paying attention, right? So we have to do it where we now know exactly what it takes to maintain your weight. So it might take 2 or 3 weeks till you kind of get in the groove. And then we know how many calories you need. You can get that predicted, but again, that's going to predict your basal metabolic rate, not your total daily energy expenditure. You have to do that multiplied by your activity factor, and that changes all the time. But I want to know an average of like, I on average eat about 2,300 calories a day to maintain my weight. Then 5 days a week, you do 75% of that amount, and 2 days a week go back to that amount. And what he found was that it was easier for people to do this. And it works really well, like 5 days a week. And then on the weekend, and it's not on the weekend, have a free for all. It's just go back to eating that amount. And then, when you're cutting those calories, I think the best place to cut them, and Dr. Stacy Sims said this last night. I'm like, I love that so much. She goes, cut them from dinner.
Because you can digest better and sleep better.
You can digest better. You can sleep better. I think you're better off eating less at night anyway. And you're going to go to bed.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like when you're eating your calories during the day, you're following the normal circadian rhythm. You're more active. It makes more sense. Like I've always been I tried the breakfast skipping just because I wanted to see. I'm always an NF1, and I'm like, A, my workouts suck. B, I'm angry.
Yeah, me too. I wake up hungry.
Mad exerciser. Yeah, I wake up. I've always woken up hungry. So I wake up. I do my Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation. I have my coffee.
Love it.
I wait a bit, and then I'll have breakfast, and then wait before I go work out. But if I try to work out fasted, it's the lamest, most pathetic thing ever. So that's how I think that we're good, but also understanding that, let's say you're going to lose 30 pounds and let's say you lose 30 pounds of fat, but you put on 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. So you've got a 20-pound difference. You're still going to have a lower metabolic rate. You don't have as much body to handle. Now, some of the muscle mass increase will offset it, but it's only going to be so much. That's why it's so important to also get that activity going. We we all think of exercise as this big thing for metabolism. But if you look at a thin person, they naturally are like moving all the time. And in fact, there's cool research out there showing that when you overfeed someone who is normal weight, they tend to move more. Underfeed them, they move less. In that non-exercise activity thermogenesis, just the stuff, a lot of that's things you aren't as aware of. They'll start to fidget more if they just burn it off, but give people less and they start to conserve. So that's where we have to be very aware of how much we're moving. Like, it is the big focus for me. It's like, did you get your steps in today?
Well, I think it's so easy nowadays to spend the entire day on your butt. Truthfully, because I think we're all on the computer, on the phone. I mean, even us recording today, we're going to be in these chairs.
We should be on walking pads.
We should. It would be very annoying to listen to, but we're sitting here for 2 hours. I'm mentally telling myself I'm going for a walk right when I get home, probably after my lunch. I have to be very intentional with setting that walking time because it's really easy for me to let the day go by and then I check my phone and I have 5,000 steps.
I know.
And I'm like, oh my God, I literally haven't moved. Because even if I do a crazy leg day, and just that, that isn't really enough. Like, the movement's so crucial. I always think of my husband. He's a bodybuilder and he's, 6-pack, jacked. But people don't realize he's not just lifting weights in the gym. He's getting 25,000 steps a day usually because he takes every meeting while walking.
Wow.
I know. He paces around the pool. He's constantly moving and he eats a lot of food. So anyway, he's just
good. You want that energy flux. So
yeah,
I think the easy way to do it, and it's interesting, this person I'm working with right now is a super disciplined person. He just has to have a process. So I said, all right, he was getting 2,500 steps in a day. The average person gets 2,500 to 4,000 steps a day. I know. That's why let's major in the majors first.
Yeah.
So much like before we worry about seed oils, before we start focusing on red light,
yes,
maybe we need to get our steps in.
Yes.
I don't know. Call me crazy. Maybe we need to eat enough protein. Maybe we need to make sure we're hydrated enough. Let's major in the majors that are the biggest things that will, like, someone just DM me, are B12 shots going to help me with weight loss? I'm like, not really. Could we major in the majors?
No, the foundation is crucial.
Right.
The fact, like, where I started 5 years ago, now I have the sauna, the cold plunge, the red light because I've done all the other stuff.
Yes.
But I think the most important thing is to start with the steps, start with the weight, start with the foundation, and you can add from there.
Yes.
And if anything, that's less overwhelming.
Well, what's so cool? This Brian Johnson guy who is spent $2 million a year hacking his health and says the majority of things that make the biggest difference are the things that don't really cost anything. Yeah. Diet, exercise, sleep. Yeah. I'm like, amen. Right?
I love that he's saying that.
I know. Because at first I was like, okay, this guy's weird. And then
I ran into him on the street.
I love him.
Actually, in Venice. He was glowing. He looks like
alien glowing, or
alien glow. Yeah. Like that alien glow, Yeah. Okay, I would regret not asking you this. Can you give us the tea on creatine? For women.
Creatine.
Okay, you love creatine.
I love creatine. I would definitely, I wish I'd started this much sooner. I can't believe I didn't. I think it's because when I was training people at Gold's Gym in Venice, it was such a bro dude thing. I was like, none of that, and I just never looked at it. And then as I started to really look at sarcopenia, there were a couple things that became very clear. Number one, like, why are we not all taking creatine, especially women who have less tissue stores, as we know? And, especially if you're a plant-based woman and you're not getting enough, you're not going to get it from your diet. You're only going to make about a gram. But you look at what it does. Great study in menopausal women helping with depression. So we know it helps with cognition. It helps with bones. It helps with skin. It helps you work out harder. And I have been amazed because as I've been talking about creatine, I have gotten so much resistance that I'm blown away. Like, you might as well just say, take this and you're going to blow up. They're like, but what about my hair, my kidneys? And I'm going to retain water and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like this one, I have gotten more feedback on this supplement than anything else ever.
I think is it the water retention weight gain concern is the big one for women?
It is. And I am really, so I'm digging into creatine right now, big time. I have been using creatine monohydrate because that was, the oldest, most researched one. I met the guy who has creatine HCl, who created it. He found me because I was speaking at a medical conference, and he tracked me down on LinkedIn and gave me the whole spiel on creatine HCl. And I'm like, okay, well, but you created a creatine HCl. So he goes, this is like the iPhone 15, and that over there is a rotary phone. So I'm really looking right now to see what makes the most sense, which type of creatine, whether it's the most pure form that's 99.9% pure, or the regular form that's 99% pure. Like, how much does this matter? Or is it the HCl that turns out you can use a lot less of and may not cause some of that fluid retention? So what is the fluid retention? And I'll tell you what I've done to work through this and help people. Some of that fluid retention's amazing.
It's in the muscle, right?
Which goes back to, you got to use a bioimpedance scale, because then you'll go, oh, this is awesome. I have more water in my muscles. This is what I want.
Right.
This is the best thing ever. I did not take creatine and put on body fat. And I don't know about you, but when I started taking creatine, I'm like, where has this been all my life? I can now work out harder. It's fantastic.
And you didn't see bloating when you first started taking it?
No, and I even did loading. I did loading. I did 5 grams 4 times a day, because what you have to do is get your creatine stores up.
Okay.
But I have now a different way I would teach people to do it based on all the feedback I'm getting from people. I just went and was like, fine, I'll do 5 days and load it. A little tummy thing one day. I was like, nothing really.
Wow.
And I've been taking 5 grams at least a day ever since. But now I'm kind of playing around with the HCl. Now, what I would do with someone is I would start them with 1 gram.
Okay.
And then I would take them to 2, then to 3. Depending on their size, I'd put them, and their diet. If you've got someone who's totally plant-based, let's go to 5. But depending on your size, somewhere between 3 to 5 grams. And then you just always stay there. Now, there might be an advantage to doing that before you go to the gym. It seems like it. At first, I was like, it doesn't matter because it's tissue stores, but it seems like it could be helpful. Now I just figure I'm going to get every advantage I can. Why not? Why wouldn't I? So that's how I do it. Is I take it in the morning, do my electrolytes.
Mix it all in like a habit stack. Yeah.
Yeah. I also started adding in, and I don't think this is important for me, but I think this is important for a lot of women, like scallop women I was talking about. This would be a perfect thing for her.
Scallop woman.
And I have a friend who, I'm a really close friend who I'm looking at, and I'm like, she's got sarcopenia. What do I need to do? Like, I can't lose her. So I brought her essential amino acids, and I go, we're going to have these with breakfast and with dinner.
Wow.
Because I know we're not getting enough protein in. And this is our insurance policy. No, this doesn't mean you don't have to eat it, but let's say that you had 20 grams of protein, which I think for most people that might be what they're getting, and they think they did a great job, or maybe they had an egg. I'm like, that's not going to do it. But let's say that you got 20 grams of protein in. Getting a hit of essential amino acids is going to help you get the leucine you need for muscle protein synthesis. So to me, it's a little health insurance policy, and I found really good data on sarcopenia and using this with older adults. And I was like, why wouldn't we be doing this? Why wouldn't we be doing this? Breakfast and dinner, so that we help with those bumper meals of getting enough of that leucine, and so that we're covered.
So creatine and EAAs.
And creatine, EAAs in the morning. I also think collagen, like especially as you're aging.
Right. I'm just starting to use creatine again. I used it. So I was keto for a while.
Oh, you were? How did you like that?
So I think it's a great tool.
Right. Diets are tools.
Yeah, I think it's a great tool. I did it probably for a little bit too long.
How long did you do it?
Like on and off for 3 years, to be honest. It wasn't just for weight loss. I also did it for my skin, and I felt like it was incredibly beneficial for my skin. But I also found when I did stool tests that I was missing some crucial bacteria. So now I'm eating sweet potato again. I don't respond very well to carbs. I don't feel amazing afterwards. Like potatoes are kind of like my sweet spot. I don't feel great with rice. Like I've had to kind of experiment and figure out the best thing for me. But I liked it. And I used creatine during that time to kind of like help with the muscle. You know, I felt like I wasn't getting that pump at the gym. And I remember Greg recommending creatine, and now I'm starting to use it again after having so many people on the show tell me how amazing it is.
Well, especially, aren't you trying to get pregnant?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
It helps with that?
It's not helping with that, but when I look at pregnancy, I look at a couple different phases. There's before you even think about getting pregnant, where you're doing all of the detoxification and upgrade to make sure that your body's super healthy and, saunas, all that. Then everything that you want to really maintain is great nutrients. During pregnancy, you start before you get pregnant, then you keep that through, then the post with the nursing and the recovery, right? So
creatine's a helpful supplement.
Creatine's a helpful, and carnitine.
Okay.
Those two. I'm not, it's funny. My diet basically is protein.
Yeah.
A little berries.
See, this is me.
A lot of non-starchy vegetables, a little bit of fat.
Yeah.
If you like, I could be a very happy carnivore with Brussels sprouts.
I love Brussels sprouts.
Love them too.
Why are they so good?
Love.
Obsessed.
Now, don't like them boiled, but I love like
roasted
Brussels sprouts. Oh my gosh. And I also love cauliflower rice.
Oh, okay.
Cauliflower rice. And I make cauliflower rice pilaf all the time. But I mean, that's what basically at home, my husband will fit some carbs in, like some rice, some starchier carbs in, but every once in a while I'll eat some lentils or little black beans, but I just don't feel good on them.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
But I also do not, I've never been able to pull off keto. Don't like it. Don't feel good on it.
Interesting.
I don't feel good on high carb, low fat. Like I know all the different things, tried them all, tried vegan, vegetarian. If you said you have to do one of these crazy diets, it would be carnivore.
Same. It truly is for me. I did it for a little bit actually, and I felt phenomenal. I mean, this morning I had steak and berries for breakfast.
Yes, that's
amazing.
Like, yummy.
I love eggs, but I think I made myself allergic.
Well, eggs are very interesting. So when I wrote the Virgin Diet was because I was teaching this course to doctors called Overcoming Weight Loss Resistance. And I was using a food sensitivity test to help people get on the program. It was one of the things, because they would if you get a test, they're like, oh, they'll do it. Well, the food sensitivity test took 3 weeks to come back. And what I noticed in looking at these tests and then talking to the lab director and having him validate this was that 80% of the people showed dairy and eggs.
Yeah.
And then underneath that, the next tier was soy, corn, peanuts. Now, gluten's a different type of test, but if you looked at why it was the gut getting leaky to let these foods create inflammation, it was because of gluten and sugar. And so we had 3 weeks before the test results came back. I just started pulling the foods out anyway. And I was like, I'm getting the same results. And then I would help them heal their gut. And then we'd go back and check and see which foods work and which foods don't. The foods that I think are concerning that we have to be careful with are eggs and dairy and soy, corn, peanuts, right? And I just am not a fan of gluten. Now, if I lived in Italy, entirely different story, but I don't.
Agreed.
I live here and we've got glyphosate and it's garbage. And so if I'm in San Francisco, I'm having sourdough bread. This is where I grew up, but San Francisco is a nightmare right now, so I won't be going for a while. Oh.
Yep. Okay. Agreed. I've been baking on the weekend, and if I make it myself, if I make sourdough myself, I will eat it. But other than that, no gluten.
Yeah. My bonus daughter during the pandemic moved in with us and decided, there was that whole thing of like perfecting sourdough.
Yes.
Every morning I'd come down to like freshly baked sourdough loaves. I was like, you have to leave. Get out of here.
You have to take your bread and leave.
Yes.
JJ, thank you so much. That was so insightful. It's time for the question I ask every guest. I ask this question because I believe everyone's pursuit of wellness looks different. What would you say wellness means to you?
It means aging powerfully.
I love it. And I know you have a challenge coming up. Can you tell us where we can find the challenge?
This is because I always love the biggest things that'll make an impact. Again, let's major in the majors, right? And so I created an Eat Protein First challenge. It's 7 days. And what happens when people go through this is crazy. Like in just 7 days, they're not hungry. They've got better food satisfaction. Their cravings go away. Their energy is balanced. So it's just one thing that you focus on. That's what you do. Big results.
Incredible. And where can everyone find you online?
jjvirgin.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for joining us on the Pursuit of Wellness podcast. To support this show, please rate and review and share with your loved ones. If you want to be reminded of new episodes, click the subscribe button on your preferred podcast or video player. You can sign up for my newsletter to receive my favorites at marilewellen.com. It will be linked in the show notes. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson, Fiona Attucks, and Kelly Kyle. This show is edited by Mike Fry, and our video is recorded by Luis Vargas. You can also watch the full video of each episode on our YouTube channel at Mari Fitness. Love you, Power Girls and Power Boys. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical and mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or health team.